Now available for the first time on Google Play, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are falling apart in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy on Google Play today. This week, 17-year-old Brandon Hendricks wound up losing his life after attending a party 2 days after he graduated from high school. And when I take a critical examination of this tragic death of Brandon Hendricks, it takes me back to the dark days when I was growing up in the 1980s when New York City wasn't that safe. And this incident, which took place in the Bronx, fits right in line with the pattern and profile I talked about in my book, The Man Crisis. Now, your Brandon Hendricks wasn't one of these beta males who goes out here and participates in a spectrum of violent behaviors. No, Brandon Hendricks was a victim of one of these beta males who participates in a spectrum of violent behaviors. And because he was a victim of one of these beta males who roam these streets as urban terrorists, your Brandon Hendricks will not get a chance to live his life to its fullest potential. And your Brandon Hendricks was one of these good brothers out here, one of these good kids who wanted to go out here and go and do something great because he had a great passion for basketball, and he wanted to go out here and go play college ball and eventually become a part of the NBA. Unfortunately, all of his dreams and aspirations were destroyed because he went to one of these parties, and these beta male urban terrorists were there. And because those beta male urban terrorists were there, what they did was probably get in one of these arguments because they were either drunk or high, or they were fighting over one of these raggedy females out here. And what happened was one of these beta males, because he could not go out here and win an argument based on facts, logic, and reason, he was so caught up in his emotions that he pulled out a weapon and started shooting, and Brandon Hendricks became caught in the crossfire, got shot in the neck, and wound up losing his life. And this is what happens to many good kids out here. They wind up becoming victims of the spectrum of violent behaviors that these beta male urban terrorists participate in, and they wind up missing out on the rest of their lives because they take a minute to try to be social with these toxic individuals. And this is sadly something that had happened over the course of 30 years ago when I was a kid back in high school, when I was attending Park West High School and Taft High School during the dark days of the crack epidemic of the late 1980s and early 1990s. And because I saw so many people lose their lives in fights at these parties and also get cut up and injured, because these people would also bring box cutters and razor blades, I made it a point to avoid going to these kinds of parties or social gatherings, because wherever these beta males are, they always look to get violent, because these beta males, whenever they see another man in a social situation, these beta males get extremely insecure, and because they get insecure and in their feelings about feeling inadequate, about being in the presence of other men and other men getting attention that they want, what happens is these beta males wind up looking to start a fight with someone, start an argument with someone, and then we get the violence. And this violence, the probability of it escalates whenever there are women around, because what these beta males, because they're feeling insecure about being in the presence of another man, do is these guys, they want to show out to these girls at these parties, and they want to show that they're the baddest guy in the room. So the chances of them, when they see girls at these parties, the chances for them getting violent increases because they want to impress these girls at these parties. And this is the reason why
a parent has to sit down and talk to a kid like a Brandon Hendricks and let him know that if he wants to go somewhere, he can't go to these kinds of parties. That was a lesson, again, I learned back in the late 1980s, and sadly, a lot of young teenage boys aren't being taught this lesson, and if they were taught this lesson, they would be able to save their lives. Because if you want to go somewhere and do something with your life, there are certain people you're going to have to cut out of your life. And Brandon Hendricks didn't know that. I guess he thought he could still be social and go in these social circles. But if you are a young black man out here, you have to cut out of certain social circles. I mean, you cannot go to these parties that are in the hood. You cannot go to these barbecues and places like that, because whenever you have a gathering of these beta males at these places, the chances are one of these dudes is going to get emotional, one of these dudes is going to get personal, and one of these dudes is going to get violent. And by you being there, you increase your chance of losing your life, and you have too much to lose by going to this event. So that's why smart brothers out here, they avoid the parties, they avoid the house parties, they avoid the barbecues, they avoid these kind of gatherings, because they understand that if they get at one of these gatherings, the chances of them either winding up dead or winding up in prison go up exponentially. And again, those brothers who are getting ready to go somewhere and do something with their lives, what they do is they understand they have to cut off contact with in these environments, because these pookies, these ray-rays, these beta males, these men will destroy everything that they work for and everything that they're trying to build by getting either jealous of another man, because a lot of times these guys, whenever they hear about a guy doing well in life, that sets them off, or they see you getting the attention of women at these parties. That's what also sets them off. And sometimes these guys just get set off because somebody took the last piece of chicken, like in one barbecue incident where a guy wound up shooting a family member and murdering him, all because he ate the last piece of barbecue chicken. And if you were like Brandon Hendricks and you're trying to go somewhere and you're trying to go to school and do something with your life, because this brother, again, 2 days after graduating James Monroe High School, he winds up dead. But the reason why, sadly, he lost his life is because he didn't understand that if you're trying to go somewhere and you're trying to move your life forward, you're going to have to cut people out of your life. And again, this was a lesson I learned back at Park West in '89 when I was 16 years old. And more young brothers have to learn this lesson, that if they want to go somewhere in life, they're going to have to cut people out of their life, and they're going to have to start distancing themselves from toxic situations and toxic events like these parties. Because if you're trying to go to places like college, or you're trying to go to places like trade school, or you're trying to go start a business, you cannot go to places where Pookie and Ray Ray are, because these beta males come from these female-headed households. These beta males get very jealous when they hear of another man's success, and these beta males will try to cut another brother down, because all they want to do is be the top of the bottom, and they want to rule over ashes, and they don't mind ruling over the graves of good brothers out here. And good brothers out here, again, they have to understand that when you're trying to go somewhere, you can't go to certain places, because if you go to certain places, you're not going to be able to go out here and live your dreams. So when I listen to this story, I am really sorry for the loss of this young brother, Brandon Hendricks' life, because this brother was looking like he was getting ready to go do something with his life, and he wound up getting his life cut down by one of these crab-in-a-bucket Negroes out here, and this crab in a bucket took this man's life and dropped it into the abyss before he could go out here and rise to greatness. And what's really sad about these incidents is that they still continue to go on 30 years later here in New York. I mean, the number of shootings here in New York has gone up exponentially due to policies by your Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio as related to bail reform to give these so-called thugs a so-called chance. And your state assembly members like Carl Heastie, they have some accountability to this as well, because them reforming bail to let these guys out until they go to trial is why a lot of these guys are out here escalating their violent behavior and taking the lives of young kids like Brandon Hendricks and preventing them from actualizing their potential. Because whenever we try to do things like your bail reform and have no police or defund the police, this is how these urban terrorists gain power. And when these urban terrorists gain power in black communities, what they do is snuff out the lives of our best and brightest black men and prevent them from growing to become the leaders and authority figures who will go out here and overthrow their power base. And that's the thing that many of these beta male urban terrorists fear, and their single mothers fear, is that the more Brandon Hendricks we get in the black community, the more of a threat they are to their power base. And these guys, what they will do is try to kill these best and brightest black men so that they cannot come into the black community, take power over the black community, establish standards in the black community, and push them and their order of Pookie, Ray Ray, the welfare state, and the single mothers out of the community. That's why they kill our best and brightest, and that's why our best and brightest have to be taught how to look out for themselves, because when it comes down to our best and brightest brothers, like Brandon Hendricks, they have next to no support system, and they need to know early on they have no support system and how to conduct themselves accordingly in these black communities run by these terrorists and their single mothers. And one of the things you have to do is, again, like I did growing up back in the late 80s, is cut off all contact with these kind of guys, cut off all contact with these social situations, and cut off connections with these people, because they are going to be the crabs in a barrel, and they're going to drag you down. And when they drag you down, you're not going to be able to go out here and live your dreams, because many of these people in these social circles, they have no interest in doing anything except being another slave in the welfare state. And most of the black boys out here, again, if you want to do something with your life, you're going to have to understand the unwritten social rules for carrying and conducting yourself out here. And again, it's going to be a very lonely road as you get older, because you're going to start to see the toxic behavior of many of these beta male urban terrorists and the females who support them. And as you're seeing them out here, you're going to understand that you cannot maintain contact with these individuals, because any interaction you have with them can cost you your life, sadly, like Brian Hendricks lost his life. And again, it just saddens me to see this brother lose his life at 17 years old and never get a chance to actualize his potential and go out here and live his passion of playing basketball, which is something he wanted to do. And he wanted to do it professionally, and he'll never get a chance to go out here and do this because he didn't understand, again, the unwritten social rules for decent brothers out here. And when you don't understand those unwritten social rules, they can cost you your life. And I look at this again, and I'm saddened by it, because it reminds me a lot of myself when I was 16 years old, and I saw myself going nowhere by being in this toxic situation. And this brother didn't have the guidance, and yes, he finished high school, but because he didn't have the guidance of God and guidance of people to let him know how to socialize, he wound up losing his life 2 days after graduation. And that's something that should sadden all of us, because when in these ghettos out here, we oftentimes cut down the lives of our best and brightest, and they can't come back to help us. Meanwhile, we go out here and support the Pookies and Ray Rays by saying, I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything, and not hold these criminals accountable. Moreover, these same people want to defund the police, allowing these urban terrorists to gain even more power, not understanding that if we went out here and supported young brothers like this, Brian Hendricks, we would have a better black community, and we would have a stronger black community overall. I'm saddened to see this brother lose his life, but again, it shows me how dangerous this man crisis is, and it shows me how it destroys the lives of innocent people. Because when we don't deal with these beta males, and out here, they wind up participating in the spectrum of violent behaviors, and they take the lives of our best and brightest brothers out here and prevent them from actualizing their potential to become good, responsible men. If you want to learn more about the spectrum of violent behaviors of beta males like the ones who murdered Brian Hendricks, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle formats. You can also find it on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me do more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.